The veil of greed and wealth clouded my parents' perception, preventing them from recognizing you. By the time they finally became aware, the evil spirit had already firmly entrenched itself within you at the young age of 15. My father earnestly pleaded with the tantric to save you by any means possible.
The tantric initially declined quite clearly, but later on, he consented to evaluate his mystical powers. In accordance with his supernatural abilities, the tantric meticulously assembled all the necessary materials for the intricate rituals, and crafted 3 protective amulets to carry with him the moment he took the initial step through the mansion's entrance. He experienced a sudden jolt akin to an electric shock. The tantric was forcefully hurled inside the mansion. His body gradually began to turn a bluish hue. Observing the tantric's dire condition, Abu and Ami, who were attempting to assess the mystical power, somehow managed to arrange all the ritualistic items on the ground despite their stumbling efforts. As the ritual commenced, an extraordinarily powerful storm emerged and forcefully swept away all the items. The storm's intensity was so overwhelming that it was impossible for anyone to keep their eyes open. Once the storm subsided and the tantric managed to open his eyes, he discovered you standing directly in front of him. You were somehow managing to make your way forward by crawling along. The tantric forcefully hurled a handful of ash in your direction, and a smoky apparition materialized above you. The tantric then commenced his ritual. He meticulously tied an amulet onto Abu and Ami's hands and, after a period of focused meditation, prepared a 3rd amulet. In your grasp, he securely fastened it. In fact, it coincided precisely with the moment when his powers had significantly diminished. Once he had tied the amulet onto you, Resham closed his eyes and summoned his powers once more. After a brief period, he reopened his eyes and conveyed the information. The resolution is contained within the very same book that was utilized to summon him from an alternate world. We must locate that specific book. After conducting an exhaustive search within the mansion's extensive library, the sorcerer ultimately uncovered the incantation by which the spirit could be confined and returned to its original realm. A faint glimmer of hope had just emerged when, due to the expiration of the designated time limit, the powers commenced their return, and it began attempting to seize control over you once more. You were screaming uncontrollably, scratching at your face and pulling at your hair with your fingernails. Blood began to seep from numerous locations on her body. Witnessing this, her mother fainted, and they all stood in stunned silence, observing this horrifying scene unfold. The sorcerer had just commenced reciting the incantations to banish the spirit when it became infuriated upon hearing the spells. In a swift motion, she removed her protective amulet and hurled it far away. In a deep, masculine voice, she growled ferociously. In her intense anger, rather than tears, blood began to ooze from her eyes. Not standing on 2 legs like a human, but instead on all 4s like a wild animal, she pounced upon the tantric with the ferocity of a predator. She was now positioned atop the tantric's chest. From his mouth, in fragmented and disjointed words, the ominous proclamation was heard. You dare to separate me from my Ifrit, I shall banish you far away from this world. The tantric possibly perceived that his end time was drawing near, or perhaps he had already comprehended that he would not be able to return alive from this place. What? Despite all the prevailing circumstances, he still undertook such a considerable risk on your behalf. The tantric continued chanting with each and every breath he inhaled. With his final breath, he performed his ultimate spell to imprison the spirits within a compact container.
However, he was unable to return her to her original realm. You observed a young girl lying motionless on one side of the protective shield. Comparable to the human body, the inanimate corpse of that formidable tantric was resting there. Another notably significant object present in that particular location was the genie's vessel, and Abu was unsure about what actions to undertake next. He quickly rushed over to Uncle, with the help of his Hindu associate. The box was locked in this room, and from outside, incantations were performed using the protective thread brought from Balaji Maharaja's place. Bound securely with a protective thread, the spirit was now confined within this room, and as a precautionary measure, all the rooms that were connected to this one were permanently sealed off. The remaining parts of the mansion, with the exception of the Stormy Mansion, became accessible. And what became of your silk measuring? The spirit had departed, yet you remained there, completely lifeless. Her physical form had become exceedingly frail, or one might even say utterly hollow. Up until this point, she had been moving around under the influence of the malevolent power, but now she found herself unable to even shift from the bed. The injuries on her body were only deteriorating further as time passed. Furthermore, the malevolent spirit's formidable strength had significantly diminished due to being in the womb of prolonged fasting. After enduring an arduous struggle between life and death for a period of 4 days, they ultimately succumbed. Following your passing, both mother and father were utterly devastated. Mother refrained from eating for numerous consecutive days. Nevertheless, the most important truth is that an individual does not cease to exist alongside the departed. Life inevitably continues onward. Consequently, even after the heartrending loss of their only child, my parents acquired a modest residence in the neighboring settlement to spend the remainder of their lives. And they departed from the mansion permanently. I came into this world precisely 5 months subsequent to your passing, yet even that failed to evoke any emotion in my mother's desolate heart. Throughout my entire childhood, I experienced neglect in this manner. The spirit had exited our lives, but an unusual mental state perpetually haunted my family. My parents were never able to forget the excruciatingly painful death of their young daughter that occurred right before their eyes. In the overwhelming grief of losing you, my mother departed from my life when I was merely 12 years old. She became beloved to Allah, and now He was merely quietly enduring His days. The joyfulness of our family was shattered. I entered into marriage at the youthful age of 17, and it appeared as though life would become vibrant and colorful, but regrettably, misfortune did not abandon me. Just a few days following the marriage, my husband passed away, and I returned to my father. Father never expressed even a couple of words of genuine tenderness. Deep within his heart, he held on to the firm conviction that my birth was the result of someone's tempting influence. As time went on, life continued in this monotonous and unchanging manner. Now, he has also passed away. At this specific juncture in time, I am merely counting the remaining days of my existence in solitude, yet I am unable to completely comprehend how that genie successfully managed to escape from the confines of the room.
Mother wiped her tears with the edge of her sari and softly said,
It is quite possible that the influence of those mystical chants has diminished over time, and the Jinn is eagerly waiting to emerge from its container once the door is opened. Vinny might have inadvertently opened the door, and the Jinn could have had an impact on her.
After hearing Risham's tale, and there was a lot visible, and tears kept falling from her eyes, but today she wanted to act with wisdom rather than being swayed by her affection.
Amma, at this moment, please provide some guidance. My daughter is also bearing a portion of that malevolent spirit within her womb, and perhaps it has become aware that we are on the verge of taking certain actions.
So then I stepped out of my room. Amma placed her hand on Sona's head while chanting a mantra because at this moment, Minnie, who was the subsequent target of the Jinn, laboriously dragged herself into the hall, and Amma felt as though her silk was being pulled along with her. We were completely unaware of what we were about to witness, nor did we comprehend that after losing himself in his desires and being imprisoned for numerous years, the Jinn had become significantly more ferocious and perilous. He did not want to leave Vinnie's body at any cost. Vinnie fixed her gaze upon Amma and grinned with a terrifying chuckle that sent a wave of intense dread coursing through my entire being. Then she snarled once more in a dual-toned voice.
Should she leave from there?
Amma continued to chant the sacred mantra when Vinnie delivered a powerful blow towards Amma, causing her neck to hang limply to one side. Our terrified screams erupted in fear. I will finish every single one of you off, buddy. Again, you cannot escape from me. Suddenly, a terrifying sound came from Vinnie's mouth. The time for the power of birth to begin had come, and Vinnie gradually started to calm down. Suddenly, she sat up again and began speaking in a completely different voice.
He wants to change Vinnie to look like me. I'm Resham, and I've been lost in this mansion until now, unable to find freedom. He sees my face in Vinnie, so he's taken over her mind and shaped her to be like me. This is a very powerful Jinn, and it will destroy all of you. This time, it shall preserve its progeny. But if its progeny enters into the world, we will never be able to send this entity back from this realm. This realm does not belong to the Jinns. Do not allow them to enter, as they will bring about catastrophic destruction with their presence. My abilities are insignificant compared to this Jinn, so I am unable to assist even if I wish to, but I can inform you of the location of the book that contains the incantations necessary to send it back from this place.
Abruptly, an intense gust of wind swept through, causing a book to tumble down right in front of him. Sequentially, the pages of the book commenced turning and then halted at a particular location.
First, carefully inscribe this powerful mantra onto a piece of paper and subsequently dissolve it in water. Then, using that water, form a protective circle and ensure that each of you is seated within it, collectively reciting these potent mantras. Do not underestimate the formidable strength of that symbol. It will endeavor to frighten and bewilder you. However, do not cease.
In accordance with what Resham mentioned, Mother swiftly transcribed the incantations from the book onto a sheet of paper and dissolved it in a glass of water.
But all these chants are written in Arabic. We can't read them. They have to be read in Arabic. I'll write down their pronunciation here. Hurry up. It's almost time for them to return.
I had discovered one final method to rescue my sister. In accordance with Resho's detailed instructions, we had completed all the necessary preparations. Mother carefully drew a circle using water in a glass, and we collectively began chanting the mantra. We were reciting the mantra in a fragmented manner. Upon hearing the sound of the chants, Vinnie came rushing out of her room. She was screaming with all her strength, covering her ears with her hands. In just a few brief moments, blood started to trickle from her ears. For the very first occasion today, we observed that terrifying figure with our own eyes. She was visibly shaking, desperately begging with clasped hands for us to stop the chants. The horrifying voice reverberated throughout the entire room. I shall not depart from this place by myself if you do not stop this method immediately, I shall tear it apart right now. Venu's hands started to twist in the opposite direction. Her eyes were rolling back in pain. Mother was gradually losing consciousness, witnessing her condition. Mother, he desires for us to cease chanting the mantra. Do not gaze at him. Do not shift from your position. Binnie was wailing loudly. It appeared as though someone was ripping her body apart from within. Occasionally, she would slam her head against the walls, and at other times she would tug at her hair. Each of her agonizing screams made our souls weep tears of blood. However, according to Resham's instructions, without fear, we recited those chants 108 times. In the end, there was a loud scream. She was thrown far away.
It seemed like her whole body was hit hard by a strong lightning bolt. In the very subsequent moment, everything turned completely silent. It seemed that the spirit had returned to its own realm. Vinny was in an extremely dire condition, with blood oozing from nearly every part of her body. We hurriedly took her to the hospital. After several months of intensive treatment, my sister eventually recovered. The demonic child that was developing inside her also vanished on its own as soon as the demon departed. Vinny's body healed. However, this had such a profoundly significant impact on her mental state that my sister was never able to lead a normal life again. She spent the remainder of her existence resembling a living corpse. That mansion inflicted such profound wounds upon us that we could never forget. Years passed since this event. One day, I made the decision to call Vine for our evening meal. "Vinay, please come and have dinner, Vinay," I called out as I made my way to Vinay's room, only to discover it was completely empty. Where could she have possibly gone at such a late hour in the night? I pondered as I proceeded to the terrace to search for her. Upon reaching the terrace, I saw Vinny had once again elegantly draped her city with a beautiful scarf and was smiling while gazing thoughtfully to one side. Observing this peculiar scene sent a shiver coursing through my entire body. With fear, I glanced in the opposite direction and saw a smoky apparition ominously hovering in the air. In a state of ominous apprehension, I let out a loud, piercing scream and collapsed to the ground, my eyes wide with terror, signaling a great impending catastrophe.